tradition at the Congressional Correspondents' Dinner, as you all know, is to have one Republican speaker and one Democratic speaker. But as Speaker Pelosi pointed out, the economic times are tough. You guys could have saved a lot of money by just asking Joe Lieberman. He liked that joke. I tried it out on him. Instead, you asked me and a rising star in the Republican Party, Kevin McCarthy, who, like every other rising star in the Republican Party, must have once been on the short list for GOP vice president. How do you go home and tell your wife that it didn't work out? Honey, I was on the short list for vice president, but they didn't think I was as qualified as Sarah Palin. Actually, Kevin is here instead of Eric Cantor. For those who don't know Eric, he's a member of Congress, a real estate developer, and a lawyer. That's what we call the axis of evil. But I'm actually glad, Kevin, that you are here instead. Although I didn't see you at the President's Super Bowl party. You were probably invited, but as Speaker Pelosi knows, it's just that these days the House Republicans say no to everything. So both of us, Kevin and I, have the task to comment about current events in the past year. So much has happened politically since your last dinner. I don't think anyone in the wildest dreams would have imagined that Barack Obama would be our president, especially Hillary Clinton. Since this is your night off, I will do the reporting, and I will fill you in on what a few of our friends have been up to. Hillary Clinton is, of course, Secretary of State, and she is currently brokering a ceasefire between David Patterson and Caroline Kennedy. Chris Dodd has been working on helping homeowners to get rid of their unwanted homes that they can't afford, like the house that he bought in Iowa. And John Edwards, I tried that joke on him too. I cleared them all. John Edwards is still talking about the two Americas, which turned out to be the greatest pickup line in history. Okay. Now we have a new president, and he's our first wired president, and he is never without his BlackBerry. Although, like many Americans, I look forward to a colorblind society when we can just call it a berry. Okay. And, oh, come on, you guys. I'm just like 5 minutes into this speech. It is still shorter than a Joe Biden soundbite. Okay. Now, this new president, he had a great inauguration. Of course, there were a few little problems, like the people who never got in to actually see the inauguration. There were tens of thousands of people stuck in what's being called the Purple Tunnel of Doom. They came to D.C., they spent thousands of dollars to get here, and they were left out in the freezing cold. So much for Democrats being against torture. One solution is to send them some kind of commemorative plate. Another solution is to just send them $50 billion from the TARP funds. Personally, I have a better idea. I put together a photo album that we can send everyone with the pictures that I took at the inaugural. So here we go. Now, first you see this crowd shot, the 2 million people, the sea of faces, and you see in the back that little yellow circle here. That would be Reverend Jeremiah Wright's seat, right back there. And that little blue circle back there, that was my original seat. So this, in our next slide, is where I ended up sitting after I made a call to Rod Blagojevich. That worked out quite well for me. That is also the entire United States Senate delegation from Minnesota. Now, this is the president sort of tinkering with his inauguration speech. He's thinking, what would Joe Biden do in this situation? Oh, that's right, he'd add 50 pages. Okay, now we have next Aretha's hat. Now, if you look carefully at this photo, and this is a new development, I know there's been a lot written about the hat, but the hat is actually larger than George Bush. You see that? I found that in that photo. And it was a tough choice for the organizers. Should they let in 50,000 more people or make room for the hat? They went with the hat. Okay, now here's a great one. This is Rahm greeting Congress. Some people were offended by this, but I thought it was great. If it was the old days, he would have used just one finger. It's the new wrong. Now here we have Dick Cheney in the wheelchair. Even on this cold day, he radiates warmth and sunny cheerfulness. You guys, doesn't he look like he's about to say, "Prepare to die, Mr. Bond"? Okay. Now we have John Roberts. That's a very memorable moment for all of us, administering the oath. When he was reading the words, as many of you remember, he messed up faithfully. He messed up faithfully. And somewhere, Elliot Spitzer and Vito Fusella are saying, "Join the club." Okay, now here's my last photo. Here is Rick Warren. His hair looks pretty messy in this photograph. And this is what happens if you have offended every gay stylist in the United States of America. Okay. Okay, well, tonight has been a lot of fun, and I want to thank you for inviting me. As I mentioned, my dad spent his life as a journalist. He wrote for 50 years, and he is still writing. He was first with the AP, and then he was a sports writer, and then he was a columnist for a very long time with the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. When he was with the AP, he wrote the story that went around the world. It called the race for Kennedy in 1960, when it was so close that the votes from the Iron Range of Minnesota, where my dad grew up, were still out. And he knew that they would go Democratic, and then Minnesota would go Democratic, and then Kennedy would win. And the story called the race for Kennedy. My dad came up at a time when newspapers were flourishing. He came from an iron ore mining town where my grandpa worked 1,500 feet underground. Through journalism, my dad was able to see the world. He interviewed everyone from Ronald Reagan to Ginger Rogers to Mike Ditka. He covered the '68 convention, he covered Watergate, and he was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. But through it all, he knew that his job was to be a witness to history, to tell the stories that defined his time. Now, I know that things, despite the jokes, are much tougher for newspapers and for journalists, but your responsibility today is just as great. You are the witnesses to these turbulent times, the reporters who will document forever whether we fail or succeed, whether we are courageous or timid. This may be the most momentous time in our lives, and you will bear witness to it. Now we each have our jobs to do. It has been a privilege to be here with you tonight. Thank you very much.